Good morning to the whole world. I think we have viewers all around the world. Ted, I am Manila Chan, and that guy over there is Ted Rall. You are tuned into the Ted Manila Information Show, otherwise just TMI for short, where we'll bring you way too much information. As you can see, we didn't do our usual musical opening because we have to sort out this whole YouTube controversy because I'm not sure if we think it's scammers trying to
It's
steal
fucking scammers.
royalties from
It's
our
scammers.
original music that
It's
Ted's
scammers.
friend Alicia Beyer made for us.
Yep.
That's but also YouTube, I feel like, kind of exploited the moment that we're talking about big pharma to drop us at that moment and say, "Oh, copyright." So it was like a twofer. So
I
that's
think
why we
it's.
came in
I think it was
with
just
the
a
cold open.
perfect storm.
Yeah, so here we are with the cold open. So we thank you for being with us. Of course, on this show, we cover anything from news, politics, lifestyle, culture, taboo stuff, the occult, and we can say stuff that we couldn't previously say on our old radio show. Anything and everything goes here because you can never have too much information. So if you're looking for a straight-laced, button-down news show, talk, whatever, morning talk, this is not going to be for you. It's probably not safe for work. If it is, then you probably might want to turn the volume down because already in the first 2 minutes, Ted dropped the F bomb. So, so
True.
it's stuff you're going to want to hear about that you want to hear about, and then stuff that we'll randomly, talk about that you didn't know that you needed to know. And of course, we're always going to laugh along the way because if you're familiar with Ted and I, like, we kind of cynically laugh at stuff, right, Ted? It's just kind of cynical snark, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, we could start cackling. We could have a different kind of laugh in every episode. We could have like a chuckle. We could have a chortle.
A
We could have
chortle, a
we could
snort,
have a droll guffaw.
snorting along the way. We are live Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. So be sure to please like and follow this show. We are obviously fully independent and rely on subscribers and monthly donations and
Which are just
other things.
starting to come in. So it's,
Yes,
and for those of you, we
locals.
really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much. We are going to be moving to a freemium model where there will be even more content that we'll be able to offer to people who support the show. With the financial contribution, it's not we're not abandoning the rest of you freebie people at all, but there'll just be more. But
Yes.
definitely, look, just remember how many hundreds of dollars a year, maybe thousands of dollars a year, you used to consume on buying records and newspapers and magazines.
CDs.
Yes, CDs. And now you don't. A lot of this stuff is free, but a lot of the good stuff is no longer available unless you support it directly. So, if you care about certain types of content, not just ours, you need to support it. So.
Yes. So we are here basically because, we all lost our jobs a couple of weeks ago. Thank you, Joe Biden. I don't think this is what he meant, right? For like the Inflation Reduction Act. Where
Or well, it's certainly yeah. He added to it's kind of like, well, the jobs numbers aren't looking good for you and me, Manila. It's like our jobs numbers our employment numbers are very high, 100% between the two of us. And it's also, like, I gotta say, really galling to hear the election framed as a setup as a between the forces of democracy and the forces of authoritarianism, considering that the so-called force of democracy literally ignored the First Amendment and got
yes.
fired.
Yes, and hence why we're here. But with that, we're still going to do what we do, and see where this goes. So we do rely on viewer support, so we can turn this into what we used to be gainfully employed for. So with that,
Well, we're
um,
trying to turn lemons into lemonade, right? We're trying to literally, look, the thing is, freedom is another word for nothing left to lose, right? And we have
yeah,
freedom. I mean, we can't be fired here. That we
ain't
have
that the
freedom.
truth?
So
Yes. So that this is
that's not a
us.
small thing.
No, we're using these lemons that the Biden regime has thrown at us to make lemonade. So we're doing what we can, and we appreciate you being here, whether it is paid, unpaid, whatever. We do appreciate you being here,
True.
because part of the fight is freedom of speech, and we will not be cowed. So with that, let's get into headlines.
All right.
Jaws, please.
That's the only sound effect we're allowed to have. We're going to fight to get that music back, though. That's our music. We're going to fight to do that.
Yes.
We got to fight
We are.
for our right. All right.
Absolutely.
So, all right, here we go. All right. Fans have been in an uproar since internet sensation Peanut the Squirrel was seized from his owner's home and euthanized by officials in upstate New York this week over what they say was the unfair killing of a beloved family member. Peanut and a raccoon named Fred were both seized Wednesday from the home Longo in Pine City in the south central part of New York State along the Pennsylvania border after County Health Department and the New York Department of Environmental Conservation said in a joint statement that they had received reports about potentially unsafe housing of wildlife that could carry rabies and the illegal keeping of wildlife as pets. I would just like to point out, by the way, that any human being could carry rabies. So maybe we should just break into people's homes and steal their kids and euthanize them because they could be carrying rabies. I mean, I mean, if I remember the story correctly, this squirrel has been living for 7 years with this guy, and he was orphaned. He was orphaned. His mama got run over by a car. These two used to live in the city by you, Ted, and 7 whatever years ago, they witnessed the mama getting run over by a car and saw the little baby squirrel, and they rescued him. Yeah, often I used to walk along Far Hills Avenue in Dayton on my way to school, and squirrels would often get hit, and if they were pregnant, this is a squirrel thing. They make it to the side of the road, and then they deliver their babies. Oh my God! And I'm sure that's what happened here. Yeah, it's actually very disturbing and extremely sad. And so, oh my God, I never knew that about. So I'm sure that's what the deal was here. So honestly, what should have happened here is that, at most, they got some complaints from, well, this was an internet famous squirrel, right? Right. So some assholes on the internet reported them. And then, so I think the health department, at most, they should have said, well, technically, according to the law, like, okay, there's rabies and blah, 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 blah. But we understand you've been living with these animals. But rabies is not the default of all animals. No, they don't 99.99% of animals do not have rabies, right? So it's like, you could say technically, so like, we're going to give you a warning. Here's a piece of paper. Please sign, acknowledge that, we warned you that you might, please be careful. And you can, by the way, get yourself checked out for rabies, right? Right. But there's no reason to believe that either this raccoon or this squirrel. I had a family friend, they had a pet raccoon, same sort of thing, rescued from life. It's not uncommon. Elizabeth Taylor, you may have heard of her. She very famously had a pet chipmunk, which she used to keep named Nibbles, which she loved animals, and she kept Nibbles in her pocket, and she would just like reach into her pocket and like pet Nibbles, and Nibbles was like, hi, and it was like her little secret pet. And I did not know that. A lot of people have unorthodox pets, and of course, Manila, you used to live in Dubai, where people had like leopards and major exotic pets. I mean, this goes to the whole weird thing about how we put animals and we classify them in a box. Like in the United States, you will not have squirrel as pet. You can have cat. You can have dog. In New York, ferret? No. In France? No ferrets? No ferrets are allowed. They're illegal in New York. It's like stupid. Okay. Outside of New York, Nassau County, ferret away. Have as many ferrets as you want. And it's like, and all over the country, they have these different rules. They're completely arbitrary and capricious. And like, so there's no real reason. It's like, it's like a food thing. We don't eat horse unless you live in France. We don't eat dogs unless you live in parts of China, right? I mean, it's just sort of like it's stupid. I mean, this guy lived peacefully with this adorable squirrel, this internet famous squirrel, and his less internet famous raccoon.
Right.
And like, and like, this is like the kind, I mean, it is, well, we'll get into, let me finish like what happened here, right? So anyway, they were both seized from the two animals, the raccoon and the squirrel, were seized by the frankly morons from the Department of Environmental and Conservation, and the two agencies announced that they were going to test them for rabies. And in order to do though, so they had to kill them, because what they do is they cut off the head and they mail the head to a lab somewhere. And so
no, is that really what happened?
That's really what they do. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They don't take a blood sample?
My mom's neighbor, when I was a kid, had a dog that bit me, pretty much every other kid in the neighborhood. And my mom finally went to her neighbor, who she was best friends with, and said, look, I'm going to have your dog tested for rabies if you don't do something about this. And what that, the implication was, the test kind of solves the problem, because they cut off the dog's head and mailed it to Columbus, Ohio. And so they didn't do that. So they instead sent the dog to live with a family in a rural area, right? But the point is that, like, or maybe that was like a lie we were told, and maybe the dog was put down. It was a very dangerous biting dog. But point is, it was they do that, and this is just ridiculous. So anyway, Longo and Peanut had amassed many, many fans, and those fans and even a lawmaker and Donald Trump have decried the harshness and force with which they say a raid was conducted on the home. And by the way, if you really ever want to see brilliant political showmanship, read Donald Trump's press release, in which he said, the best line is, he said, the squirrel who seems to have been innocent, who appears to have been innocent. I would say so. It definitely appears to be innocent. To euthanize the animal with no recourse. There was no appeal. It's not legal to keep wildlife and pets in many parts of the country, including New York, but people licensed as wildlife rehabilitators can care for them in New York as long as they plan to release them back to the wild once they're well. It's not clear whether Longo had gone through or begun the process of becoming a licensed wildlife rehabilitator, but he had established a nonprofit called Peanuts Freedom Farm Animal Sanctuary. This is all, like, this is the,
we should hear from
of the state, is what this
is. Absolutely. Look, this is what they talked to TMZ when this news broke and it became an internet thing over the weekend. Of course, because who would they talk to first that was going to get all of the attention and eyeballs on them? It was TMZ.
Sure.
But it is really sad. Like, I felt so sad for them, and his wife is sobbing in the background.
It's disgusting.
And what was worse,
can you imagine if they fucking broke down my door and took Clovis away? And
we heard Clovis has rabies.
Yeah, we heard.
And they just took him. But like, his wife, the like, to add insult to injury, the wife, I don't know of her ethnic or national background or whatever, but according to Mr. Longo, he says that they kept questioning his wife's nationality, if her citizenship status was in question, to the fucking Department of
Environmental Conservation.
Like, really? Like, why? You're not ICE. Like, you are DEC. Why? You're not ICE. Why? ICE was disbanded. Like, why are you asking them?
Even for DEC, I'm sorry, this may technically be the law, but there's also common sense. First of all, the law should be changed. People should be able to have what they call wildlife. I mean, squirrels are not endangered, okay? This is not like taking a dangerous, first of all, either a dangerous animal like a grizzly bear into your own custody.
Right.
Although in Russia, people have pet bears.
I was just going to say, in Russia, like, anything goes.
Yeah, they have wolves. People have pet wolves.
Fine.
But I mean, the point is, I don't think it should be illegal. I think if an animal is really, and also, I mean, when you're talking about something as common as a raccoon or a squirrel, who friggin' cares? Really?
Apparently.
Just, like, it doesn't
Kathy
matter.
Hochul's New York cares.
So it's dumb.
Listen to them.
Let it go.
Listen to them. This is so sad.
Euthanized and the raccoon as well. I am so sorry. This must be really difficult for you.
It not only tears my family apart, but Peanut was the cornerstone of our nonprofit animal rescue. And 10 to 12 DEC officers raided my house as if I was a drug dealer.
Ridiculous.
I was sat outside my house for 5 hours. I had to get a police escort to my bathroom. I wasn't even allowed to feed my rescue horses breakfast or lunch, I was sat there like a criminal after they interrogated my wife to check out her immigration status, then proceeded to ask me if I had cameras in my house, then proceeded to go through every cabinet, nook, and cranny of my house for a squirrel and a raccoon.
They got a search warrant?
They got a search warrant. 4 departments and a judge signed off on a search warrant for a squirrel and a raccoon. And then they took them and killed them.
Why did they go through all that to get a search warrant for an animal that had been with you very safely, and the world witnessed this for 7 years? Why now suddenly did they show up with a search warrant and take these animals?
We haven't a clue. We don't know who made the complaints. Again, Peanut was a indoor squirrel, not harming anybody. He's been with us for 7 years. Not a single complaint was ever filed for this animal. We had him for 7.5 years. He became the world's most famous squirrel. We weren't hiding him by any means. He was all over TikTok. He became the first squirrel on TikTok to ever hit 1 million followers. He did every news station around the world. He's helped people. He's helped kids gather joy. And then we started a nonprofit animal rescue called Peanut's Freedom Farm to help animals like Peanut fight a good fight when they're in a neglected case or they're sitting in a slaughter auction.
Okay, so
these are good people, and what happened to them
kind-hearted
is wrong.
So here's the thing, Ted, and I looked a little further into this because I was like, well, yeah, who would drop a dime on these like kind-hearted people? So as it turns out, I don't know if it's, because they moved from the city after they, got some money from, doing their TikTok videos. And I don't think people watching, especially in our age group, Ted, people don't realize how much money can be made from being a TikTok star, or the fact that, that Peanut was a TikTok star. You can make a boatload of money, which these people did. And then they went and left the city and decided they were going to go buy this 350-acre farm in, is it still considered upstate New York, Ted? If you're like south? No, that's not. Is it upstate?
Well, you can't. Yeah, it's upstate. That is upstate.
Oh, okay.
It's still.
Okay.
I mean, it's southern New York of that area, but it's north of New York City. Everything north.
It's what's considered.
Everything's north of New York City. New York.
Okay.
New York City's as far south as you can be and still be in New York City. In New York State.
Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha. So that's where this couple moved to and opened this animal sanctuary. But as it turns out, Ted, here's the twist in the plot. So this couple are themselves a very famous OnlyFans couple.
Oh.
Yes. I
hope the
that.
squirrel was not involved.
No. The squirrel, Peanut had his own celebrity going on. But this couple managed, between the money that Peanut was making.
Keep talking. I'll be back in 20 seconds.
Yes. So the money that Peanut was raking in, coupled with what this particular couple was earning from their OnlyFans, they managed to amass almost $1 million in savings to go buy a 350-acre farm in upstate New York. And they decided to make it an animal sanctuary. So, I mean, it's not wrong. Like, it's not impossible to think just because people, do adult sites and whatever, that they don't also have big hearts and love animals.
Oh, no, there's no contradiction there at all. I mean,
there's but people, so they think that's what it is. They think the couple thinks what it is that somebody realized that they have an adult site, that they're, an adult site couple, and that somebody dropped the dime on them that way when they realized, oh, these people are nasty porn people, and so somebody dropped the dime on them. But here's him talking about it. Like he says it here in just kind of a
somebody that's going to come here. and barge your place and ruin your life, but you ruined mine, and I want to know why. And I wanted to talk to you because it's going to start coming out. I have an OnlyFans page. So this was something, not that it's relevant to this. It's not like I promoted on Peanuts page. It was a way for me to make the money I had to make to buy this place.
Okay.
So it was like, okay, some provocative photos, this and that. People enjoy me a little bit more on a different side of social media. It is what it is. It was an ample opportunity. It went much better than we anticipated, and it bought this property. It bought the beginning of this place. And,
Wow.
as soon as this place was self-sufficient, I was out. And this is not about us wanting money. We want this place to live on in Peanuts' memory, and we want to change what's going on in the government. We want to pass this law to help animals. The money that we will get, and if we win, the money will go to this sanctuary. We will stay.
So there you go. It's not, these people have many facets to their personality, and
Sure.
and this couple, like, just because they engage in adult, website stuff doesn't mean they're any, less good.
Hey,
human beings.
DEC, you will pry Clovis out of my cold, dead hands.
Yeah. So that's what this whole controversy this weekend all over the internet is based on Mr. and Mrs. Longo and Peanut and Fred. Let's not forget Fred, because Fred was a victim too.
True.
But they suspect that it was somebody that didn't agree with their lifestyle.
Yeah, some
And
uptight religious person, no doubt. I mean, so anyway, we have more headlines to get through, but I just want to say, it's like this. People are going to say, okay, well, this is kind of, why would Donald Trump like weigh in on this comparatively distracting issue from, say,
it's very animal heavy, this
major
election
issues.
cycle.
But animal,
The Haitian
people
cats.
care a lot about animals, and it's like, I think it takes us back to our inner child, where you just, everybody kind of like loves the innocence of animals, and you just think about, like, if, say, a social like media celebrity like Grumpy Cat, or like the Dogecoin dog, Dogecoin dog got like he's a Shiba Inu, and he got an obituary in the New York Times. I mean,
he was a real dog.
He was a real dog. Yeah, he was someone's
I didn't know
pet.
that.
And then there's, of course, Henri Le Chat, who also was a internet famous cat, and who is still missed.
Oh,
and there was the
Angry
Russian
Cat.
There was Grumpy Cat, who I met Grumpy Cat, and then also there was a Russian cat named Twix, who was it was an uproar in Russia when he got out of his carrier on a passenger train in northern Russia, where it's extremely cold and there's lots of ferocious animals, and a conductor thought it was a stray cat, tossed Twix off the train.
Oh my God.
Apparently there was almost a riot on the train. Russians love animals. So they basically demanded that the train be stopped, and the passengers rushed off. But it's like, this was an area where it's like, 45 below zero. And they found the Twix and had been immediately killed by like some kind of predator nearby. They found fang marks in Twix. This went all the way up to the Kremlin. Even President Putin was angry, expressed anger about this. And we know Putin likes animals too. Anyway, the Russian conductor was investigated and prosecuted. Animal cruelty is taken very seriously, right? Even Hitler, right? Hitler passed the world's first comprehensive animal cruelty laws. Nazi Germany was the first regime that, ironically, ever prosecuted people for cruelty, and they kind of set the standard in the world. So, is it a distraction?
He was also a vegetarian. Don't forget.
True, it is a distraction, but it's also kind of like it goes to something very primal in people.
But it speaks to the pulse of the country, Ted. Like you said, Americans love animals, and for at least one of the candidates to address it, not only is it a hot social media topic,
it was smart.
It really speaks to the culture of America, and Americans love our pets. And,
we do.
That's why it's a gajillion-dollar industry.
Let's get through. We have more headlines to get to, and then we're going to be giving you a voter guide for the 5 major presidential candidates just the pros, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So we want to get to that. So, all right. So Quincy Jones, the multi-talented music titan whose vast legacy ranged from producing Michael Jackson's Thriller album to writing prize-winning film and TV scores and collaborating with people like Frank Sinatra, Ray Charles, and hundreds of other artists, has died. He was 91. In a career that began when records were still played on 78s, top honors likely go to Michael Jackson's Off the Wall, Thriller, and Bad. Jones' versatility and imagination helped set off the explosive talents of Jackson as he transformed from child star to the king of pop. On tracks like Billie Jean and Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, Jones and Jackson fashioned a global soundscape out of disco, funk, rock, pop, R&B, and jazz, and African chants. For Thriller, some of the most memorable touches originated with Jones, who recruited Eddie Van Halen for a guitar solo on Beat It and brought in Vincent Price for a voiceover on the title track. Thriller sold more than 20 million copies in 1983 alone. As a boy, he learned that a Chicago neighbor owned a piano, and he soon played it constantly himself. His father moved to Washington State when Quincy was 10. His world changed at a rec center. Jones and some friends broke into the kitchen and helped themselves to lemon meringue pie when Jones noticed a small room nearby with a stage. On the stage was a piano. I went up there, stared, and then tinkled on it for a moment. That's where I began to find peace. I was 11. I knew this was it for me forever. Within a few years, he was playing trumpet and befriending a young blind guy named Ray Charles, who became a lifelong friend. He was gifted enough to win a scholarship to the Berklee College of Music in Boston, but dropped out when Hampton invited him to tour with his band. Jones went on to work as a freelance composer, conductor, arranger, and producer. As a teen, he backed some lady named Billie Holiday. By his mid-20s, he was touring with his own band. We had the best jazz band on the planet, and yet we were literally starving, Jones later told Musician magazine. That's when I discovered that there was music, and then there was the music business. If I were to survive, I would have to learn the difference between the two. As an executive, he overcame the race barrier by becoming a Veep at Mercury in the early 60s. In 71, he became the first black musical director for the Academy Awards. The first movie he produced, Color Purple, got 11 Oscar nominations in 1986, but no wins. In a partnership with Time Warner, he created Quincy Jones Entertainment, which included Vibe and Quest Broadcasting. That company was sold in 1999 for $270 million. He leaves 7 children behind.
Yes. Now, Ted, I've got a personal story about Quincy Jones. Not super personal, but kind of personal. So many people already know that I dabbled in real estate. As you know, I was a realtor in Los Angeles for several years, especially because, when you're trying to be a journalist and not, sell out to the mainstream, you got to make ends meet somehow. So that's what I did. I did real estate. And one of the properties I tried to sell was one of Quincy Jones's houses over by the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. And it was, oh my God, it was one of my favorite homes to ever show. I tried to sell it. And one of the weird things built into the walls of the house. So it was like Chinese Zen garden style house, like mid-century modern Chinese Zen, I guess is the best way I could kind of describe it, if you know what I mean. But it had like the, like little feng shui gardens all around, you know what I mean? With, what are those types of little small trees everywhere? What are those called?
Bonsais?
Bonsais. He had bonsais all over the house, and he had like a center built into the center of the house, a bonsai and rock garden built into the center. And then one of the rooms had a wall that had multiple recessed areas with stands on them for all of his awards, which were all by then cleared out. The house was like empty when I tried to sell it. But I knew I was stepping into one of Quincy Jones's fabulous houses.
Yeah.
It was so cool. It was such a cool property. I didn't ultimately end up selling it, but it was just so cool to know that I stepped into a home that belonged to such a legendary musician and musical producer.
That's
very cool.
All right,
The
we're running short. Sorry, Quincy, we got to move on here.
No, we have no guest today, so we can take our time to go through the stuff.
I know, but I want to get into this voter guide thing. All right, here we go.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Okay, we'll get there. You're right. Car buyers across the United States, even those with comfortable incomes, are dropping out of the new car market as prices soar. You can count me among those people. I need a new car, but I can't afford one right now. The average price of a new auto this year is $48,000, up 21% from 5 years ago. Monthly payments on new car loans now average $767. Screw that. Up 17% from 4 years ago, according to Cox Automotive. My highest car monthly car payment ever in my life was $283. And I'm like, I always was like, and that was on a 3-year loan. I would put down 10 grand and then get like an $18,000 car. I'm not paying $767 a month. I'm just not.
Right. You'd be surprised how many people do.
Oh, I'm not surprised at all. I don't understand some people. I mean, like, I don't understand people like who have these giant oversized pickup trucks that like gobble up gas and they don't need one, right? Just cultural. They don't have a construction job or anything like that.
Sure.
And I'm behind them at the gas pump and it'll be like, oh yeah, that's my gas bill, $190. I'm like, what? Just to fill up. I'm like, I don't want to pay that. I mean, as it is, you know, my Honda, it's like, you know, it might be as much as 60 in a high price state to fill up the tank, but you know, really more like 45.
Right.
That's just I don't know how people do it.
I drive a hybrid now, so
I like hybrids. 1 in 6 new car buyers this year will take on payments of more than $1,000 a month, according to Edmunds.com, which found that 73% of consumers are holding off on buying a new car because of cost. Blame it on ballooning sticker prices resulting from more tech, automakers' quest for fatter profit margins, and skyrocketing auto loan rates. Yeah, auto loan rates. I remember when auto loans were 0%, where it was literally free money.
They still do that from time to time for you know, people with really, really good credit from time to time. But because of where we're at with the Fed, Ted, this is where the rubber meets the road, right? When people say they don't care about elections, everything, it's always the same or whatever. No, you should care because this is evidence of how it actually impacts your daily life. So when your car takes a shit, depending on who you vote for, Harris or Trump or Jill Stein or whatever, the people that they put in power, like right now, there's Jerome Powell, right? He sat on the 0%, I would say, for way too long, and then decided to be like, okay, we're going to 7%. Like that's like the baseline now, like 7%. So what that does in turn in your everyday daily life, when you're going to the car dealership, when you know your engine just falls off on the side of the road, this is where it does matter, where the elections actually matter. Like if people feel too far removed because of whatever, the war is over there. It's always over there, right, Ted? But this is where the problem gets sticky at home, is when you suddenly have what we would call a surprise car payment. Is like, oh, my car is 10 years old and now, you know, the turbo has gone out.
It needs a new
or the
confabulator.
Right, the suspension is shot, or my tires. Good God, you like $800 for a set now. People can't afford that.
Yeah, until recently, I thought of tires as basically being 110 each, basically. And
no, they're like
not true
$800 for the set now. And then because of the way cars are weighted and everything now, and I used to work in the auto industry for 7 years, so I actually know this industry very well. And because of the new technology in the cars and the way cars are shaped, you have to buy sets. You can't buy the one. You can, right, but the treads
for an
will
older
wear
car
differently.
Like I have a 2015.
Yeah.
It's like you can still buy
of like a real car. Yeah, of a normal car.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But these newer cars, the way they're shaped and the way their suspension is set up, if the tires don't match, you run the threat of wearing the treads differently, and you'll shred the tire. So it's just all. It's
there's also and of course, obviously, look, a big part. I can't believe they didn't mention this, right? A big part of the reason that these average car prices are higher is because of the Tesla factor, right? I mean, electric cars are far more expensive. I mean, some of them are well over $100,000, and
oh my God,
so it's so yeah. I mean, it's not
me chills
for people to pay $70,000 or $80,000 for a Tesla with everything fully loaded. So that's part of the reason too. I mean, people are paying for premium. This makes me think it's time to like go back to what I used to drive a muscle car, a 1966 Plymouth Barracuda.
So cool.
And I'm thinking, it may be time to I've always had my
Yeah.
eye on like a GTO or something, and
Oh my God.
maybe just get a cherry a cherry Roadrunner or something.
Oh my
And
God.
72.
Brian and I were talking last night about the fact that I've always wanted either like a 1985 Chevy Camaro Z28 IROC T-top
Nice.
or similarly a Trans Am from that era with T-tops.
My best friend, she drove. She was
So
a
cool.
rich kid, and when she got her when we all got our driver's licenses when we turned 15 and a half, when we got our learner's permits in Ohio. So this
Yeah.
was 1978.
Same.
She got a 78 Z28 with the orange racing stripe, white, with a custom Corvette engine. Sweet.
So
Fast.
cool.
We outran the.
So my husband and I were looking at photos of what these cars looked like back then. He said, "Really? That's what you would want? Like if we had like money to piss away on a fun car?" I said, "Yeah, I would get like a mid 1980s Camaro T-top or a Trans Am, because they're very similar in look." And we started looking at pictures of what the insides looked like with the crank windows, and I
Yeah.
remember the seat belt. I mean, low tech and just you can fix it yourself.
You can.
Like
Yeah.
that's
You
the
do.
thing.
You are going to have to find a mechanic, though. You are going to have to find someone
Sure.
who's good with these older cars. I
But an
don't know what it
engine.
is. Somehow, all my best old car mechanics were gay women for some reason. But
Really?
yeah, there's a whole subculture of gay women mechanics who love old cars. So, yeah.
I almost fit in there, except for not being gay.
Right. All right. Well, let's move on here. Okay. So Baxter has suspended commercial activities of its IV products in China to ease supply chains in the U.S. caused by Hurricane Helene. That, according to Endpoints News, the urgent need to support patient care in the U.S. expedited our decision to suspend the promotion and selling of IV solutions in China, a spokesperson said. It had already been considering pulling back its business there for several months due to numerous alternative suppliers of IV fluids in China. Anyway, Baxter's in the throes of major IV drug shortages in the United States, something that, Manila, you experienced recently after a manufacturing site in Marion, North Carolina, closed due to damage by Hurricane Helene in October. Since then, 2 of Baxter's factories in China have been temporarily shipping IV products to the U.S. The Shanghai facility for Baxter will be exporting at least 10 different products, including glucose and sodium injections, into the U.S. with a delivery date of early November or December, according to the FDA. A site in Guangzhou is also shipping at least 10 different products to the U.S., with other facilities in Suzhou and Tianjin. The company said Thursday that its facility in Marion has restarted one of its IV manufacturing lines, which represents about a quarter of the factory's total capacity. It anticipates the facility will be totally up and running by the beginning of next year.
Well, that didn't help me any, as Ted alluded to. It's been a week ago today, I was admitted to the hospital, and it turns out, I had viral meningitis. And but long story short about the IV thing, is I got to experience it firsthand when they gave me one IV bag the entire 40 hours that I was there. One IV bag, because they saw that I was still able to eat and drink on my own, and that I wasn't experiencing, the other symptoms that came with viral meningitis. Once they saw that I was okay that way, and they started administering all the IV antivirals sans the IV solution, which you would ordinarily get, that hydrates you, right? They said they have to use it sparingly. The hospital people told me, my nurses told me, because there is a shortage. They said Baxter is limited on what they can dole out to, as a supplier. And so I witnessed this myself firsthand, and they are not giving IVs to everybody, like IV solution to everybody. I got one bag in 40 hours, and everything else was administered intravenously, but without the drip. So this is all the more important in highlighting, like Ted and I were talking about last week when I was released from the hospital, how we really need to focus on taking care of this country first and having, maybe, maybe a federal plant that is specific to, taking care of America's health needs, Ted?
Yeah, just maybe. Well, I mean, it's kind of like when you think about the beginning of the pandemic when they said, oh, we don't have any masks. And I was like, okay, so, I think about like the old civil defense department, right, in the 1950s. And, they had all over the country, there were fallout shelters loaded up with water, with giant water canisters and, water biscuits and all sorts of stuff that was supposed to help you survive the apocalypse, gas masks, what are those things called? Geiger counters, etc. Well, I mean, you can still buy those online. They're like all over the place. I mean, it should be like the last scene of Indiana Jones. There should be warehouses that are full of things like, medical supplies, masks,
Right.
needles, drugs, stuff to fight anticipated pandemics. George W. Bush, one of the last things he did in his second term was and he passed this on to his successor, Barack Obama, and he said that there's going to be a big pandemic at some point, and the CDC has warned us, and we really need to gear up and try to get ahead of it. The Obama administration and then the Trump administration didn't do anything to follow up on that, but it's like, and we still haven't. But like, yeah, you're right. These are like IV, IV stuff. Everything. There should just be vast stockpiles of anything essential that we might need in the future.
Well, Ted, America does have one central reserve of something vitally, vitally important. I don't know if you've ever heard about this or if you know about it, Ted, but
bullshit.
No, America has backup reserves for like a millennia of cheese in a cheese cave outside of St. Louis, Missouri. I'm not joking. Look it up. I will send you the article.
Is that where the Reagan era government surplus cheese came from? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think so. Yes, because you have to turn them over every, X amount of years or whatever. But the US government literally has a cheese cave off the side of some highway, and I verified this with somebody, source I have.
It's the strategic cheese reserve.
Cheese reserve. It's true.
Even
we have
France
no IV solution. We have no IV solution for when hard times hit our country. But don't worry, Ted, we got cheese.
Maybe we should have smothered the coronavirus with cheese.
Melted cheese on everybody.
Take this, you purple spiky shit.
Like this is just so funny to me because that's where our priorities are, right? Like we love cheese, nacho cheese, brie, whatever. You name cheddar. Cheddar, I think is America's
I have a cheese story to tell. So I lived with two guys, and we all got expelled from Colombia at the same time. So we were living in the slums, not kind of like not far from where I am now, but like far enough, like spiritually and demographically, very far. And and anyway, this was during the Reagan era, and that's when Reagan tried to help take the edge off his terrible economic policies. For some reason, he's not remembered for being as shitty of a president as he was. And mostly the economy sucked, except for like a year and a half under his 2 years, I say 8 years in office. But anyway, during one of the shitty years, they announced that they were going to release government surplus cheese. So I had two roommates, and one of them was Dan, one was Chris. Chris went off to collect. He's like, I'm going to go get the cheese. So he comes back from, we're like, whatever. So, he smoked a lot of weed. Chris disappears. He comes back a couple of hours later. And he wasn't exactly, his relationship with the truth was not a very intimate one. So, we're like, hey, Chris, what about the cheese? And he's like, oh, God, you'll never believe what happened. And I remember saying, I'm sure that's true. And then he's like, so then he claimed that he'd been mugged on the way. That part was completely credible. It was 1985 or 84, and everyone was getting mugged right and left. But he claimed that someone mugged him for the cheese, and in order to defend himself, he threw the cheese at the assailant. The cheese bounced off the assailant's head, and then, in his mind, fell into the gutter, into the sewer, never to be seen again. And I was like, but if you are familiar with New York City, you know, we don't have open sewers at all. We have like just these grates that are always like sort of clogged with 200 years of schmutz. So like, there's no way you could even get a little tiny micro cheese like a vache qui rit into one of those things, much less a giant block of
block of cheese
of industrial cheddar.
Well, he sounded like he sounds like a fun guy.
I think he ate that cheese.
He had the
with
munchies, man.
Yeah, I think
that's what it is. He had the munchies. Let's be honest.
And he should be. All right, here we go. Finally, thieves have stolen 2 Andy Warhol paintings and damaged 2 more. The thieves blew open the door of an art gallery in southern Netherlands, and this was part of a famous series of screen prints by Andy Warhol. And then they damaged a few more on the way out of the botched heist. They were trying to take the entire series known as Reigning Queens as they left the Dutch town of, and I am never going to be able to pronounce this, but I'm going to try, Oysterwijk, I believe.
Oysterwijk? Oysterwijk?
Oysterwijk. This is why the Dutch lost their vast empire. No one could pronounce anything.
Oysterwijk.
However, the thieves did escape and are currently, no doubt, mooning over portraits of Elizabeth II, the Queen of the UK, and Margaret II of Denmark, the Prince of Queen Beatrix of the Netherlands, and Ntombi Tefwala, who is now known as the Queen Mother of Eswatini, were left on the street as they fled. As can happen.
Yeah, I mean, Andy Warhol stuff. Can you imagine? God, I mean, would you even recognize that was like a real print of the Queen of Eswatini if you walked by it?
No,
I would.
If the Queen of Eswatini walked in and stole Clovis on behalf of the Department of Environmental Conservation, I would not be able to identify her.
So, like, can you imagine on the streets of wherever, Oysterwijk or what? I don't know if it's like New York or
Oysterwijk. Yeah, on the mean streets of Oysterwijk.
If people are just walking by, but you know, like Dutch people are very, you know, like
there's a lot of art thefts in the Netherlands.
They do their
You've
own
noticed
thing.
that, right? People constantly break into galleries in Holland and steal
but
shit.
That's because people usually, they're very orderly in the Netherlands, right? Like I know a lot of Dutch. I happen to know a lot of Dutch people.
It's like watered down Germany is what it is. It's not a
they're very orderly and they don't like really do this stuff. So I almost think that like they're under secured in these places.
I think the truth is there's a lot of galleries. A lot of them are pretty small, and they're probably like seriously like very small staff. And you're right. They're not expecting. Although at this point they should be expecting a lot of thieves because there always are thieves. But you know, it's kind of like we have this little gallery, and it's maybe in a former private home, and we have like one person at the door and maybe one person in the back. And if guys come in with like Uzis and take everything, you know, I mean, what are you going to do?
Well, you know, I don't know. It's untold the fortune that these original Andy Warhol prints would be on the black market, and who's buying them. Now, I mean,
well, that's a good question, right? I mean, this is not the kind of thing where it's like, okay, so if someone bought like a Rembrandt, like if a Rembrandt is stolen, okay, granted, whoever buys it, the final, acquirer, they can never display it, right? Or, to anyone but their most trusted. All they can do is sit in the privacy of their home and cackle about the fact that they own it. Or own it isn't really the right word, that they have it. But I think there are kind of like crazy rich people who do that, who are like, I don't care, I just want this.
Yeah.
But honestly, this is like Warhol stuff. Obviously, a lot of his stuff is very collectible and goes for a lot of money. But even Warhol prints, it's kind of like there's a lot of them. And what's the market for them? I mean, I can't even imagine.
I have no idea. And the Oysterwijk gallery won't comment to their value, presumably because they don't want to tell the thieves how much money they're potentially sitting on, is my theory.
Possibly so. All right, let's get to I know you're not excited about this story, but we're doing it anyway. All right, so voter guide for tomorrow. I want to, so my former employer, Dr. Pat Soon-Shiong at the LA Times, famously or infamously, depending on your point of view, last week told the editorial board of the LA Times that rather than endorse Kamala Harris, he would prefer that they post a description of the pros and cons of both major candidates. I don't think they were going to do anything about the minor candidates like Cornel West, Jill Stein, and Chase Oliver of the Libertarian Party. But I thought it would be kind of like fun for us to sort of break it down for the people who may not have voted yet. Kind of like, what are the pros and cons? I mean, look, the thing is conventional wisdom. Let's start with the two majors, right? I mean, to me, I feel like the conventional wisdom is that Kamala Harris is, more reasonable and like is obviously better among certain liberal Democrats than Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is intemperate and kind of insane, and January 6th and so on, blah 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 blah. But when I look at these two, I don't see a lot of daylight between them, and and the reason that I don't see that is, first of all, there's not really any differences in a substantial way on the issues that I care about. Like I really care about climate change. I mean, Trump wants to drill, baby, drill. Kamala Harris has not articulated any kind of meaningful way to try to save the planet. Neither of them has proposed any kind of meaningful repeal and replace or amendment to Obamacare. Neither of them said anything really seriously about reducing income disparity or anything like that. So I feel like the thing about, to me, the big brief against Donald Trump is he doesn't have the temperate, wise personality that one would want in a president of the United States. But I don't think really, I think Kamala Harris comes off as like weak and like kind of like not like unserious. And so, I mean, that is, and then I think like, okay, so on the one, and then there's the thing that Trump is very like authoritarian. He says he wants to use the National Guard and the military against the enemy within, which presumably would include people like me, which of course I don't want the military used against me.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
No?
I think, well, like you pointed out, I think a week or two ago, that if we're going to use evidence as something to base our conclusions on whoever these people are, that it's evidence free that Kamala Harris is intelligent.
That's true.
It's so
that is
that's
true.
what kind of bothers me. And I know Trump is not the most articulate person in the world, like far from it. He's no wordsmith. And I know some people are going to argue that, he was born with a silver spoon or whatever.
I mean, the Liz stuff he said about Liz Cheney, like how would she like it if she were in war, and that was great.
I think there's some wisdom there. Wisdom there. He's just not articulate, and he's certainly no wordsmith. And
he speaks at like a third grade level.
Yes, but at the same time, he has to be somewhat smart because, I mean, he was able to build a real estate empire and other stuff, right? Where, I think his business acumen makes up.
No, I think also his EQ and his campaign chops are like nobody else's. Now, I want to say, the thing about Trump, and I think this is really something, you and I have talked about this previously in our former radio life, but I think it's really worth settling on. And I want my Democratic friends to really hear me here. I mean, Donald Trump is the first politician, I'm 61 years old, of my entire life that I have heard with an actually strong anti-militaristic bent.
Yes.
I mean, even Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders was never going to go so far left against militarism as Donald Trump has. I mean, it's not just rhetoric. I mean, he literally calls out warmongers. He calls out war hawks like Liz Cheney hardcore. He ran in a Republican primary and won in 2016, calling out how stupid the Iraq war was.
Endless
That's
wars, right?
amazing, right?
Yes, I agree. I mean,
And that is and like also as president opened up dialogue with North Korea, no doubt ratcheted
yes,
down tensions. Things would be much worse between us if not for
totally.
his actions. His willingness to just go and talk to Kim and show respect and treat him with respect and dignity has really softened things there.
I agree. I've never seen a politician in this era do that in the way of Trump. And
he said he expressed a willingness to do the same thing with the
for
Ayatollah
all
in Iran. He also and he negotiated with the Taliban an exit agreement from Afghanistan, ending America's longest war. I
for
mean,
all
he
of his
doesn't
faults, Ted,
like war. He doesn't
Ted,
like war.
for all of Donald Trump's faults, and there are many, for all of his faults, when it comes to wars, he is attacking the Democrats from the left.
Yes, far from the left.
Crazy.
Like I said, I mean, he's literally to the left of Bernie Sanders when it comes to issues of war and peace. So that's a massive thing. And that's why, to me, like if it wasn't for that, if Donald Trump was like a traditional warmongering Liz Cheney, Dick Cheney, George W. Bush type model, I could really say, okay, look, there's obviously a difference between Harris but there isn't, because and she's such a warmonger that it's like, so to me, I'm trying to think, like, I think the only real benefits of supporting Kamala Harris would be presumably if she got a Supreme Court opening, she would appoint someone who's more liberal than, Trump did. Presumably, not necessarily. I mean, Obama had his chance to appoint someone, decided to go to Martha's Vineyard for the summer instead of staying in D.C. and fighting for Merrick Garland. He didn't. He could have. He could have gotten that through. He just didn't care.
Right.
And then, I think that presumably, but she may never have an opening, right? That may not happen. There's no one like ready to kick right now. And then I guess the thing is, it would make women feel good because there would be like a first woman president, and they could turn to their daughters and say, look, it's not just an all guy. I mean, I don't think that's a small thing. It's not just a boys' world. Like, you can achieve the same as a boy. That's a big deal. It is. So the symbolism is not nothing, but that's
not lost on me. That's not lost on me. And I get it. Being a biological female with the same body parts, presumably, as Kamala Harris. I've never seen her body parts, so I don't know. Presumably. And like with me pursuing journalism, not going into, medical school or law school or business school like my parents would have preferred, right? I had one person to look up to in journalism in the 80s, and that was Connie Chung. And it meant the world to me that she was there. It meant the world to me that she looked like me. She was also a woman.
She's got a new book out, by the way.
I know. And so, it's not, the message of representation is not lost on a little girl, Manila. And that made all the difference probably in the world, that to say I could do that too. However, as a grown-up, voting age Manila, tax-paying Manila, fearful of World War III Manila, mother Manila, when I look at this woman talking right here, and she has other biological women who also, are vagina humans, like us. When you have Liz Cheney on your side and Papa Dick Cheney on your side, that worries me more. That what does representation fucking matter if we get blown to smithereens in World War III? Because to me, I look at that side of the aisle, and we are staring down the barrel of nukes all around the world and ratcheting up tensions everywhere. So at this stage, for me, for a rational woman, and I know there are going to be cracks in the Rumble chat about rational women, the existence of rational women, but we exist. And for us, it doesn't fucking matter that you have, a period like me, like, it doesn't matter. I don't care. I want to know that tomorrow is going to come and that my son can grow up tomorrow and not die of radiation poisoning from nukes. And that
Yeah, I
doesn't
mean,
seem to be where
that's,
that side of the aisle
look,
is
I'm glad
looked
you
at.
brought that up, Manila, because I do feel like a lot of my Democratic friends, most of my friends, almost all of my friends are voting for Kamala. They, and they're basically saying like, well, these are wars that are taking place outside. Like, I can't be as concerned about the people in Gaza as I am about like women losing their reproductive rights in the United States. First of all, I'd say that's a false choice because Kamala Harris is not going to be able to, even if she's so inclined, to federalize Roe v. Wade. She can't. She's
Right.
not going to have 60 votes in the U.S. Senate. So it's just all she can do is blather and talk. And when the Democrats had their chance in 2009, they chose not to do it. Right. So like
Correct.
it's like sort of it doesn't really matter. But even if it did matter, there's the whole question like, well, are people in Gaza less important or less real than Americans here? Now, for me, they're not less important or less real. And it's like, and okay, I'm not a woman, obviously, but I think it, or maybe that's not obvious, but anyway, but I'm not. And like, if women, it's kind of like, well, is it really right to say that Americans' abortion rights rely on the ability to let Israel like carpet bomb Gaza? And the answer is it shouldn't. And
Right.
and so I think it's a false dynamic, but I'm glad you brought it up because it is personal. World War III isn't always going to be fought overseas. 9/11 reminds us that
Right.
the war can come here too, and it will at some point. And so we're up to a lot of no good. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's like in terms of the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? Like Kamala Harris, I think the good is mainly the symbolism, the symbolic resonance of having a first woman president. The bad is her. There's a lot of bad. Her inability to articulate, to be articulate, the unseriousness of purpose, the lack of vision. There's no sense at all that she's like, oh, I'm dying to become president because I want to do this, that, and the other, and here's what they are.
Right.
If she has that, she's not sharing that with us. The ugly is that she hasn't really earned our is first of all the Gaza
She didn't
stuff.
earn the
That's the
nomination.
ugly. She did not
She didn't
earn
earn
our
the
votes.
nomination.
No.
Period. She didn't earn the nomination to be there in the first place. So
And
that
by the way,
already
that's part of the
sours
problem
me.
with the progressives, right? I mean, we're so like in a normal cycle, a Democrat will run to the left in order to secure the nomination, and
Yep.
then pivot right in the general in order to
The center.
yeah. Well, so but she never ran in the primary. Therefore, all she's done is run to the right the entire time. That's going to hurt her with progressives.
Yeah.
I mean, because
And
progressives can't even say, "Oh, remember back in March when she said all
no,
those things?" Secretly,
there's
she's
no
crossing her
baseline.
fingers.
There's no
No.
fucking baseline. The baseline we have, Ted, is that it was like she was born on third base and now she just needs to slide home. That's all it is. She was
Yeah.
born on third base,
She can
and
just
then
amble.
you have like horrible war hawks like the Cheneys backing her, and every
Yeah,
neocon, the Lincoln
that's not
Project,
a feature for me. That's a bug.
all of them. Yeah, all of those war hawks are backing her. I'm not saying you have to back
And
Donald
they will
Trump,
be
but
in the
just
administration.
consider that.
And she has said, if she's elected,
Ugh.
she will have a Republican, at least one, in the cabinet.
Ugh.
But no promise that there would be a progressive in the cabinet.
No, of course not. She's
from her own party, So, I mean, we know what she is.
Well,
She's
that's why Rashida Tlaib literally rejected supporting her this weekend. Rashida Tlaib came out and said, nope, I am not going to back Kamala Harris.
She can't.
So good on Rashida.
And she's right. Good for her. Now, let's talk about the good and the bad and the ugly for Donald Trump. I think we can make that a shorter conversation just because everybody talks about him all the time. The good for me is the fact that he thinks out of the box, that he's reinventing politics as he goes. He's flexible. He's pivots. He's kind of a wild card. He voting for him sends like it drives a message to the powers that be that they're not going to get their way for 4 years. And it's basically like a big fuck you to the system, which, you know, the power of that is not to be underrated. I mean, I hate the system.
Totally.
A lot of people do. The
He's a
bad,
big orange middle finger to the entire
is
system.
that he doesn't work hard. He doesn't study hard. He doesn't know really much about all the stuff that he's doing. And
He doesn't know stuff.
yeah, he doesn't know things, and he doesn't care that he doesn't know, and he doesn't know that he doesn't know. That's a problem.
Right. He doesn't care that he doesn't know, Ted. Like I think he's aware that he doesn't know stuff, but even if he did, if he was aware, he doesn't care. Like
That's true.
Trump do Trump. That's
true. Trump gonna Trump. And then I think the ugly is obviously like sort of he still has, it's, you know, despite all the stuff I said about him being skeptical of wars, which is I still hold to, he's still got too much of a hard-on for Israel and for and also for you know, generals, people wearing fancy uniforms and all that, and military, and all the our sainted soldiers and law enforcement people and all that crap. I mean, that's a problem for me. That's ugly.
That's the ugly for me too. I mean, I agree with you on all of those points, Ted. I mean, the only thing I could do is probably add to them. Like the fact that he doesn't care, that's for me actually kind of a feature.
Well, I think the fact that he doesn't care in general is good, but the fact, I mean, come on, I want my president to be knowledgeable.
No, you know, I agree with that, but the fact that he, like, Trump gives no fucks, I think is actually a feature, because
for his supporters, it certainly is.
Well, no, in general, the fact that he gives no fucks is that he does, like, people say, oh, he's authoritarian, he's going to be a dictator or whatever. No, he has given us 4 years already, and he's shown us that he's not very authoritarian, despite how much people say that he is, and he's a dictator, and he's this, and he's that, and the other thing, and whatever, that he's, you know, Orange Hitler.
No, it was a pretty light touch, really. I mean, there's a lot of concern that
there's no evidence of that.
He would trash the regulatory regime to an extreme, and then, you know, our food wouldn't be regulated. Or he talked a little bit about making America
the other plus for me is that the people that have come around to support him, and I don't believe, you know, 100% in all of the any or all of these politicians, but the fact that you end up with people like a Tulsi Gabbard or an RFK Jr. on your side versus the Cheneys, or, you know, like the whole neocon project on the other side, I think it looks better on Donald Trump that you got RFK Jr. and
RFK Jr. is basically viewed as a nut by most people, I think.
Yeah, but that's because they try to malign him on the left. But he's not wrong on a lot of, like,
that's true.
He's been an environmental lawyer his entire life. Lawyer.
I know. But, you know,
so, I mean, he's done some pretty wacky
shit, even recently with this weird sexting thing that he had with the reporter from magazine. Anyway,
the same way I didn't find that an issue for Bill Clinton in the 90s, I don't find that an issue for RFK Jr. But I think it bodes better for Trump that he has I think the Elon
Musk thing is more impressive. I mean, Elon Musk is one of the, you know, most important and innovative entrepreneurs of the modern era, and, you know, the fact that he supports Trump mainly over free speech stuff is, you know, definitely a huge, massive, you know, colorful feather in Trump's cap.
And not for nothing, Ted. Look at this guy on screen. Not for nothing. Look at old JD here. So we got to remember the two people that are going to be one heartbeat away, no matter whichever side wins. It's either going to be this guy one heartbeat away from the Oval Office, or Tim Walz.
The putz.
I feel like one of them is a little more capable than the other. You know, like,
one's certainly more impressive than the other.
That's why, you know.
I think there's a fair point there. We should talk about the other, the third party candidates. I voted for Dr. Jill Stein, the good, the bad, and the ugly there. Look, honestly, imagine, and this is, I think, very useful, a useful way to talk about how fucked up the two-party system is.
Yeah.
Imagine if there were no baggage and you didn't know anybody's parties, and these 5 candidates, right, like Stein, West, Oliver, and the other 2 showed up, and they just talked, and you met them cold, no baggage.
Dr. Jill is great.
I think Jill would come in first. I mean,
Oh, I agree.
people would
I've
be the
interviewed
most
her.
impressed with her. And
I've interviewed her several times, and she's very kind and so smart, and so she's
cool.
She's a great, like, she just seems like a great person. It's not like I
Yes.
spent hours interviewing her, but in her press junkets, like 10, 15, 20 minutes with her, and she just comes off as not, first of all, she's an MD, so that right there I think qualifies her in a way that I don't think any other US president has ever been, Ted, and you would be the historian on this.
That's true.
I don't believe there's been any MD that's ever been in office. So Dr. Jill Stein, who's a real doctor, not like Dr. Jill Biden, a real doctor, having that person in office, there's a lot of temperament that's involved in being a doctor. I love Dr. Stein, and I've loved her for many years. I voted for her in the past, and she's great. Like, I don't have a lot of bad things to say about Dr. Stein.
Well,
honestly.
so, and then, I mean, yeah, and look, I think the worst thing about her is her party. Her party is completely disorganized. It's not even disorganized. It would have to improve dramatically to become disorganized. Basically, the Green Party is like a non-entity. They don't run any local candidates. They're incredibly they're non-functional. And so that's a problem, because if, let's say, there was a miracle and we woke up Wednesday morning and she were the president-elect, she would have the dilemma that former Minnesota Governor Jesse Ventura had with the Minnesota State House. She'd have no allies whatsoever in Congress. She'd never be able to get anything done because there's no there's not a single Green Party congressman, right? I mean, let's compare that with, like, in the past, there have been Socialist Party. Well, Bernie Sanders was a Democratic Socialist senator. In the 100 years ago, there were socialist congressmen, mayors. I mean, there have been libertarian congressmen and so on. So it's not like, so that's a problem, and I don't think there's any ugly with Jill Stein at all.
Yeah, there's not ugly of her personally, but to your credit for pointing that out, that would be my complaint too. I guess it's just that her party has been, like, the party itself has just been shit with organizing for my entire adult life. And on top of it, like, Ted, did you see their weak ass response when the Green parties in Europe, like specifically the ones in Germany, where that one is led by freaking war hawk, disgusting human being, Annalena Baerbock, the foreign minister, who's my age. Like, should you really be the foreign minister in your early 40s and, like, you've just kind of never had real jobs or actually been in the military, or should you really do that, Annalena Baerbock? She's the leader of the Greens, de facto leader of the Greens in Germany. So the Green parties in Europe this weekend were all shitting on Jill Stein to tell her that she needs to drop out of the race this weekend.
Fuck them.
What assholes? Fuck you.
Yeah,
like,
they're
no.
assholes. Yeah, like, mind your business, fuckers. So, all right, let's talk about Dr. Cornel West, who I was leaning towards earlier in the race. All right, let's talk about the good, the bad, the ugly. First of all, I know I've met Dr. West on a number of occasions. We've attended events together. I would say he's one of the wisest and coolest dudes I've ever met in my life. And would I trust him in a national security crisis? 1,000,000%. I would think this is a guy who's going to sit everyone down and be like, let's all calm down. Let's take a beat. It's not going to be like the missiles are flying. Hallelujah, hallelujah. I would just trust he has maybe the best temperament that a president could possibly have. And now the bad, and well, I mean, the bad has been that he's been almost completely absent from the campaign trail, right? I mean, I don't really know what's going on with him. I mean,
he was the Green Party candidate for a hot second before Dr. Stein decided she wanted to come back. And then, American mainstream media completely maligned her as, like, the herpes virus that keeps coming back at inopportune times. Like, that's really what they called Dr. Stein. Because at one moment, Dr. West was the Green Party
Mhm.
nominee, and then Dr. Stein came back in and said, "No, I think I want to run," and they kind of booted Cornel West.
Right.
But I like him
That's
too.
correct. Now the other
If anybody's got vibes, it's this guy.
he's yeah, I've got the vibe. He's definitely I feel his vibes. And I think a lot of people do. The problem with Dr. West is the real ugly part is I don't think he's been running what he calls like a freeform jazz campaign.
Yeah.
And,
Oh my God, yes.
It seems to be more like, to me,
Yes.
like that John Cage composition, the one that's completely silent. There's been nothing there, right? I mean, he literally just, where is he? I mean, like he hasn't been out and about everywhere. It's like, I don't think he's not really running a real campaign. And if he's not running a real campaign, how the hell can he how the hell could he be president of the United States? So for me, he's disqualified just because I don't know if he's just tired or he's having health issues or he's just too busy or if he's lazy. I don't know what it is, but the point is he hasn't been out there like Jimmy Carter was in 1974, 75, driving around with his wife, in a beat up station wagon, going from city to city to city to city.
I'll tell you why, Ted. Is because back in the old days, you would actually get newspaper reporters taking pictures of you and putting you on the front page when you're cruising, Jimmy and Rosalind cruising around, with the drop top, right?
Yeah.
That's not today. Today requires a gajillion dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So you can buy ad space online on every platform. Mm-hmm. So you can buy TV commercials. So it's just profit-driven campaign systems now. That's where we're at in 2024. And there is just not enough financial support behind Dr. West, or even that the structure is, I can't say for certain, but I don't think the structure supporting him or behind him is that
robust.
Well, not only robust, but that, just like with the Green Party, that well organized.
Yeah, they're not. I mean, but I sort of imagined him, for example, come on. If he was like, I'm going to come to, grassroots, I'm going to come to, Kettering, Ohio. Is there someone who can sponsor me to talk on their front lawn, and anybody who wants to come will advertise through Facebook? I mean, he's not doing that. You know what I mean?
And he has no alliances, like you pointed out with Dr. Stein. Same thing.
Yeah,
there's no, he would have no alliance on Capitol Hill. He would be basically attacked from all sides, right? There'd be nobody helping to push his initiatives or policy designs in any direction. It would be we'd be stuck in the mud, unmoved for 4 years, and then he would get pushed out of office. So, I mean, political alliances actually matter. People don't think about it, but then you have people like the Tea Party pop up during the Biden.
Well said. I would just leave that there. Biden.
In the Biden White House is when the Tea Party popped up. And it showed you this stark contrast between, trying to do what Ronald Reagan did, which was woo both sides, right? I mean, he was also very charming, but so was Obama, right?
Yeah.
But Obama didn't do that. It became very divisive here on Capitol Hill. And I was here for that, the last couple of years of Obama's presidency. It was a divided House. It became more divided based on race, gender, in every which way. And then the Tea Party grew. And can you imagine how divided it would be if we woke up one day magically and this guy, Cornel West, not Kendrick Lamar, if Cornel West was the president of the United States, he would be attacked left, right, center, top, bottom. Everybody would be trying to fuck up his presidency. But I'll tell you, Ted, if my vote was based purely on vibes and the good vibes you get from just meeting a human being,
yes,
I couldn't tell you. I cannot express
he's one of the best human beings.
Enough.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the warmest hugs, like the warmest, gap tooth smile that you can ever see. He just oozes charisma and vibe. Just
True.
pure vibe. Like I've never
Last
seen somebody with this much vibe.
last
Just
but
saying.
not least, and because we are way over, is Chase Oliver, whom Scott Stantis and I interviewed on the
You
DMC
talk to.
podcast. So if people are interested in checking that out, it was actually a really great interview. He was very impressive.
Yeah,
He's
it was.
39 years old. He's an out gay guy. He's very smart and funny and cool, anti-militaristic. The good is, I mean, those are all good things. Energetic. I could see this guy. He was very impressive. I think in that fictional 5-way debate in which everybody just shows up, he would come away as like I think that he would be the number 2 after no, he would be tied maybe for number 2 with West in terms of smarts and everything. He's great. The good is that he's a left libertarian. And I should say the Libertarian Party is America's best organized third party. He is on the ballot, I believe, if not on every state ballot and all the territories, almost all of them. The Libertarian Party has an infrastructure. They have a pretty long history of getting some congressmen elected. And libertarianism really does reflect American culture in a way that is often forgotten about. It really, about like a light touch from government. What he brings to the table is a willingness to recognize that, a laissez-faire economic approach is not going to solve every issue, is not going to be really appropriate, isn't realistic. You do have to collect taxes to pay the fire department, something that previous purist libertarians didn't know. I'd say that the bad for him is perhaps he's a little bit on the young side. He's never held elected office before, so running for president of the United States is a little bit of let's just say a big jump. And
what's his day job? I don't even know that about him. What's his day job?
Right. That's I had known this and it's escaping me. I don't know. But he's when we interviewed him, he said he allowed that he lives in Miami. He'd been helping out to clean up the Pride Parade afterwards. He'd gone out to help clean up the litter and stuff. So I thought that was pretty cool. He's a guy who's not afraid to get his hands dirty. I don't think there's really any ugly about Chase Oliver. There's no ugly.
I'm not enthused about him is one thing. Like if I were, if I were to favor a libertarian or libertarian style, it would be very much more Ron Paulian.
Or what about Rand Paul?
Rand is, I mean,
I've always admired Rand Paul. I like
Rand too. However, if I were going to pick some random young 40-year-old dude to run for the Libertarian Party, it would actually be the comedian Dave Smith, who does one of the podcasts that I listen to. He's a libertarian comedian. He's really great. Dave Smith, who is Jewish. His dad is the Smith and mom is the Jew, which makes him a Jew. But he is an anti Gaza siege Jew. He's in New York. Yeah, so he talks about this on his podcast, and if Dave Smith were the guy running for president under the Libertarian Party, he would probably have my vote. But he's not, and Dave Smith, very articulate, very smart, and I'm sure Chase is too. I've heard him on your show, Ted, on the DMC podcast. You and Scott talking to him. It was a very interesting interview because I prior to that didn't really know anything about him, and it's my job to know. It's my non-job. It's my non-job to know things about him. And he just hasn't been out there. He just really, but that's not his fault because the media really hasn't.
All the three smaller parties candidates who ought to be the major ones, all of them, they're all like being completely frozen out.
Oh, for sure.
Manila, you have avoided telling us who you voted for or are going to vote for.
I haven't voted, and I still don't know. I could go evil orange man, or
Really?
I could go, I could, but it doesn't. My vote doesn't even matter where I live. It will not matter.
Nobody's vote matters if they live in Pennsylvania because you're not going. No, it's not. Pennsylvania will not be decided by one vote. So
I live in Northern Virginia, but I mean, so for me, whatever my vote is, it's going to be a protest vote. no matter what.
Mhm.
In my district, like no matter
You
what.
really haven't decided. Do you think you're just going to walk into the
And
booth
see my
and
vibe, see
figure
my
and feel
feel.
your vibe at that moment?
Feel my vibe at that moment. It's either going to be middle finger orange man
Or
or Dr. Stein. But I
okay.
voted for her in the past before too. So I don't know. Maybe I want to do something different this time and upset the apple cart, flip the fucking table over and just say, Trump, bitch, Trump,
Clovis.
Trump.
Clovis. Clovis.
I don't know.
Clovis.
I'm, I don't love any of them. I really don't.
Well,
And Dr.
I mean,
Stein, I don't love her party. I love Dr. Stein and I love Dr. West. Them as people, but they don't exist in a vacuum.
I'm going to write my
That's the
column
problem.
this week about what happens if America wakes up shocked that Jill Stein is elected president, is the president.
That's, I mean, if
It's
that
just-
could
it's a
happen,
thought.
I would
It's a
be
thought
okay with that.
It's a thought exercise, like just to
I would
tell
be okay with
people what's possible.
I just,
Well, we should wrap
I
it
would
up.
be okay with it. We
We're
will wrap it
at
up.
an hour
We're
and a
gone
half
way
here.
over, but there was a lot to talk about, so it was
Tomorrow's
worth
the
the extra
election.
time. Yeah,
So-
we're trying to figure out. So we're gonna do a post. Ted and I are not. I'm gonna tell the viewers now. We're not gonna do like election coverage because we're not gonna know jack shit at 10 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. So
No, we'll know.
Ted and I are gonna
We'll
do
know some
different.
stuff on Wednesday.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we're gonna have a panel show on Wednesday with some of our friends, and we're gonna shoot the shit because theoretically you should have some idea of who is winning on Wednesday. I still don't think we'll actually know Ted necessarily. Like I don't even know that we would know the definite answer on Wednesday,
No,
but we're gonna
we
have a
may
panel
not
show.
know, but we'll certainly know like some House and Senate races, some propositions.
Yeah, so
and we'll know,
we'll touch
and
on
we'll know
those.
what the issues are. I mean, if we're waiting for Pennsylvania or whatever, we'll know what's
Yeah.
going on. So we'll
So-
know what we don't know by then, which we don't
Yeah,
yet. It's
so we're not gonna
a coin toss. We have no idea how this is going to go. The polls are
call any
completely
ponies.
indeterminate. So, all right. So I
yeah,
guess
we're gonna do a post election wrap up on Wednesday once we actually know who is most likely the winner. So we'll do that on Wednesday. Tomorrow, we're just gonna do a bunch of other random stuff because there are other things happening in the world.
So
I don't know.
everyone, please subscribe to the TMI Show, either on YouTube or on Rumble, or even both. You can do both.
Yeah.
We ask you to please become a paid subscriber. That's, of course, what's really going to make a difference for us. But if you can't, you can't. That's just $5 a month on Rumble. So we can keep doing this show for you. If you're enjoying what you see and you find value in what we are trying to do here, please help us continue our work. Otherwise, it'll be like, oh yeah, there was that show, and I don't remember. They're gone now. We're fully independent. We rely on subscribers to help us keep going. So click on that button right now. If you're on the Rumble chat, you got to do it right now because we're about to be off the air in a couple of minutes. That button will go away when you're listening to it later. So click on it right now. It helps support the show. If you're listening to it later, please come back when we're live and click on it. We're live here Monday through Friday.
But if you can't,
10 a.m.
we also have our locals channel set up, which we will soon be doing premium content for paid subscribers. Because we wanted to make
sure have the rerun thing going on Rumble, right? So if you see you might be confused if you see like, oh, there's the show and then there's the rerun of the same show. Why should I listen to the rerun? Well, they're the same, but if you want to help support us, go to the rerun because that'll be live and the button will be up. That's why we do it. So that you can click anytime. So if you're kind of in doubt, just click the rerun. It's all the same, really.
Yeah, so that's how you can continue to help us grow our little channel. And of course, share our clips, share our channel, tweet it, put it on your social media, tell people. I mean, once the numbers get big enough, it will eventually kind of snowball in and of itself. And then it'll, will become profitable and be able to make this an actual paid job like we used to have.
Yeah, and we're gonna, and then we're gonna be able to, invest some more into other stuff like production values and, obviously, I want to buy a Zeppelin. I'd like to buy a Zeppelin and a flamethrower drone, of course. So
Is that what it's called?
No, a Zeppelin. No, the Zeppelin. You know what a Zeppelin is?
You mean the
Like
blimp?
the Hindenburg. Yeah. I want my own Zeppelin.
You want a blimp?
Yeah, why not?
Oh, I
Oh,
just want a
you-
1985 IROC Z 28. That's all. That's all I want.
All right.
Like,
All right.
yeah, not asking for a whole lot. But
Okay.
we're not there yet. I just
No.
want to make sure I can pay my mortgage. So that's it. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in and sticking with us. We'll see you tomorrow during Election Day. We'll peek in and out of what, the polling looks like and blah, blah, blah. So we'll see y'all tomorrow. And we got to say, shout out to our buddy, Well-Dressed Nerd, throwing a buck in there for a Rumble rant. Thank you, homie. So we got to give a shout out there. So you can do that as well. A lot of ways to try to help support the show. So you guys, thank you so much for being with us. There's if there's no music, what do we play? We can't do that till we figure out what do we play on the way out?
I'll sing it out. They'll probably sue us if I sing, whatever.
Right. Like what? I didn't think about the goodbye.
Yeah.
We got to figure that out today.
Oh,
So
well, just play
I'll do Jaws.
Yeah, I guess so.
Countdown.
We have to fix this. We have to fix this music.
I'm going to do Jaws over and over until we figure out this music issue. How about that?
All right, here we go. All right. Bye everyone.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow. Election Day. Hasta mañana.
Bye.
I got to